Greetings, YouTube friends. Today we're going to explore how eclipse season interacts with the financial markets, and specifically the 95-year cycle, which I've been tracking on the Dow Jones Industrial Average. The 95-year cycle is based on the metonic cycle of the moon, which I explained in one of my earlier videos in this series. If you missed that, there's a link in the video description below. I'm also going to give an update on the 95-year cycle analog, and I'm going to cover some key dates to keep your eyes on for December. Okay, let's look at some charts. Okay, let's start by taking a look at the 95-year cycle analog. The brown bars are the analog, and the analog is based on the metonic cycle of the moon. And for anyone who's not familiar with my work, there's a link in the video description below. Make sure to check it out. Okay, so we have been tracking this analog with a fair amount of precision, and the research shows that during eclipse season, we get inversions in the analog better than 60% of the time. This also tends to have an effect during sun square the nodes, which is the halfway point between eclipse seasons. So when we were moving into eclipse season here, I had stated in a Twitter post that we had a roughly 60% probability of seeing an inversion. So originally we were looking for a major market top to come in correlated with the major market top in 1929. And on September 3rd of 2024, we did have a significant down move. As you can see, that shows up here on the weekly bar for September 3rd of 2024. And then as we encroached on eclipse season, we saw a massive recovery and a complete inversion from the analog here. So that brings us to where we are right now. And if we take a look back during spring, you can see that the eclipse season did pretty much the exact same thing. Where we made a low on the analog, we made a high in real price action. So we are approaching the end of eclipse season now. Eclipse season ends officially on the 18th of October, which is this Friday. And the pink bar or the pink box here representing eclipse season is extended out to the next week since it falls on a Friday. And oftentimes we see eclipse season take about a week to balance out. So what I'm watching for at this point is for the Dow Jones Industrial Analog to course correct. Now, you might wonder why I have three versions here. So this bottom version is just the original version. And what I did was I created two partial versions of the analog here and I scaled them up because I think it's unlikely that we course correct to the depth of this analog here, and it's been working thus far. So I wanted to rescale them. So this is the exact same analog here, rescaled. And this is actually this pink version. This is an inversion. And so I just will preface this with, in all of my work tracking this 95-year cycle analog, I have not seen an inversion take place, a complete inversion, beyond eclipse season. That doesn't mean it can't happen. So that's why I've actually posted it here. I've also posted it here because it has an interesting correlation to some dates that I've found in December, which I'm going to talk about in just a minute. This is the direct analog, and if we were to track back to the direct analog, we would see a market top come in this week, potentially next week, but more likely this week. And what I will note about that is that we did just complete a weekly ABCD pattern in price this week as well. So that's what I'm watching for the next 2 weeks is a potential a high with a notable down move to come in. Now let's take a look at those December dates because these are really important dates coming up that I've identified. So the first date that we're going to talk about is December 13th, 2024. So when we get planetary returns, particularly when they're within a larger planetary cycle that has a correlation, like right now we're in this 95-year cycle that correlates back to 1929, we tend to see patterns of behavior in price that correlate back to 1929. So the first time that Jupiter passed over 15 degrees of Gemini was actually on August 5th, which was the biggest down day when the yen carry trade came off in August of this year. Jupiter has since stationed retrograde and is now moving backwards and is going to strike that exact same degree on December 13th of 2024. So mark your calendars for that. Then the next date that we're going to look at is December 17th. And the exact moment is 5 a.m., but we're going to see that the nodes of the moon are going to be at the exact same degree that they were at at the high of the markets before the 1987 crash. So when I start to see multiple correlations come together like this, it gives me a time window to look for potentially strong moves, and I would suspect strong moves down in the markets. Then lastly, I have kind of the showstopper, which is, I will preface, this is not a fearful post, but it is something to be aware of because it's directly correlated to the event in Pearl Harbor. So in 1941, on December 7th in the morning, Pearl Harbor was attacked, and that was a key moment in World War II. We all know that there is a lot of conflict escalating in the world right now, and so it's really just a good time to be aware of key dates during that time. So December 7th of 2024, we have an astounding number of planetary returns happening. On December 6th, here's December 6th, 2024, Mars is going to station retrograde within 1 degree of the natal Pluto of Pearl Harbor. Less than 24 hours later, we have the solar return to Pearl Harbor. We have the 2024 Mercury within 4 degrees of the natal Mercury from Pearl Harbor. And we have Venus conjunct Pluto at 0 degrees Aquarius, which is within 1 degree orb of the Pearl Harbor Venus. It's also the exact degree of the Great Mutation from 2020, where the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction occurred. And we keep moving along, and Jupiter is also going to be at an exact return degree on December 7th of 2024. So this day also has my attention for being a day that there could potentially be some strong events potentially related to conflict in the world, and specifically in the United States. So if we flip back to the Dow Jones Industrial Dow Jones Industrial Average analog, you can see why the inverted analog actually has my attention, right? Because and again, I've never seen this version play out, but if it were to play out, this would suggest that we would have a strong move down in December. So these are what I have in my mind, or this is what I'm watching. So I hope that this was informative, and I hope you mark those dates on your calendar, and we'll see how it plays out.